KingofPodcasts.com proudly presents The Wrestling is Real Podcast, because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. KOP is all about Amazon, and so should you. Go to King of Podcasts' special link at KingofAmazon.com. Here we are, another Wrestling is Real Podcast, talking about AEW All Out 2020. Here it is. And I'll tell you what, when I look at the whole show, when I look at it in just a full expanse, tonight, the crowd was a non-factor. Didn't feel much of that. The match card was very interesting in how they put it all together and how they laid it out. Now, I will say that there were a lot of things where you go in and watch an AEW pay-per-view and you come away, number one, with all the criticism from everybody. Man, there are some WWE loyalists that will absolutely just pick apart everything. When my whole point of watching this pay-per-view is I don't. And why? Is because of the fact that I don't look at this show like I do WWE. And it's just like other shows. Because everybody wants to go and put AEW at this super pedestal. I mean, damn, it's a year-old company. Okay, it's a little more than a year old. But again, a year in terms of being a TV show and being a regularly run company. But man, everybody's all caught up on things, right? And my thing is this. I look at what's going on here with the show, and there were issues where we saw some injuries, we saw some botches, and we saw some moves that were like, man, I can't believe they got away with that. It's just like there was some things you can definitely nitpick at. But when again, I need to go and look past what some of my fellow podcasters do, okay? Because they're going to go ahead and pick apart this show, because here's the reason why. Because the way Cody, the Bucks, Kenny Omega, the Elite as a collective, and Tony Khan as well, the way they position this organization. And the way they go ahead and take their shots at WWE, which they did tonight, just by the fact that we heard the story that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes when we wrap this up, about how some wrestlers in WWE are not able to now be allowed to use Cameo or Twitch to, do some extra content that might be able to monetize off of. Well, Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford, they took a shot, and it was an endorsement by All Elite Wrestling. So again, a little shot, but again, it was not like they're doing everything else. For the most part, I enjoyed the pay-per-view, period. Okay? It was a B pay-per-view, and I've said a lot of A's for this show. This one took a step back. That is okay. Given everything, I didn't mind, because I think the way they finished the show out was good. And there were a couple of matches that were fine, that were okay. Might have been Dynamite good, but maybe not so much pay-per-view good, and that's okay. But regardless of anything else, what's important here is that the storylines made sense. And the truth is, they do value storylines in their matches, and that's why the matches are on the card. Do they always pan out great? Maybe not all of them, but that's okay. Because here's the thing too. With WWE, we might get storylines, but we get hollow storylines. Remember, we did not get intricately woven storylines where we have a lot of things that happen in between a storyline with a beginning and an end. With WWE storylines, we get a beginning and an end. But the problem is, we don't get anything tangible all the time in the middle. Or if it is something, it's just a TV match that doesn't really mean much. Now, some of the storylines are not as hyper-focused each and every week. No. There are some main event feuds that definitely take precedent, and they've shown that. And that's exactly what they did tonight with about 4 or 5 different storylines. Remember, you look at the culmination of all the storylines they've been doing, you have a reason to watch Dynamite every week, because there are things you might miss if you do not watch Dynamite. And even Dark has certain things on there that will make sense towards the show. Did the announcers have a couple little flubs? Sure. Did Jim Ross need to say what he said about Anna Jay's wardrobe malfunction? He kind of stepped back about it, right? The one issue everybody had a contention about a lot was in the Matt Hardy Sammy Guevara match, where Matt Hardy, the shot he took, I looked at it a couple times back on Twitter when I saw the replay, when I had to go looking for it. And I watched it a few more times. Yeah, he hit the I just don't know how much he hit the concrete. Well, I don't know for sure. I know that Reba Sky did comment after the fact, and she was not happy with what happened. But I'm not sure the whole story. And even Tony Schiavone went on later in the broadcast trying to explain and trying to say the fact that they would not have cleared Matt to go out there if Dr. Sampson did not give the okay. For whatever reason, at that moment, Matt Hardy was probably insistent on going back out, it looks like, because he did. He finished the match. And I don't know what else. But again, I think that for the sake of the show, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. But the Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara feud had been good, but we know that the go-home show, we had the tables match. It ran short, so they really didn't get the whole story out on there. And to give a non-finish and have to finish off the match, it would have made the storyline look bad. And I think that's what was a concern partially, but that was the wrestler's concern about the storyline, because Matt Hardy, I would imagine, it's not so much for him. It's because of the fact that in every storyline we have in this show, we have certain stars that are getting built up, and the storylines that are going to see them through are important. Because Sammy Guevara is being considered a pretty high on a totem pole talent that they're trying to build up and become a star. I think that's very important to know. We did see probably a lot of gratuitous blood. That, what can you expect? Probably a little bit of campiness when you have the Mimosa Mayhem match and the Tooth and Nail match, right? So there's things like that were going on, right? And that's what comes with AEW. They do play tongue-in-cheek. They do get goofy. For instance, on Dynamite, when we saw the lawyer take on Jon Moxley, the goofiness was a little more than Brian Alvarez was expecting or wanted to see. But again, I don't play mind to that. I just think it's like whatever. I mean, they are trying to fill a 2-hour wrestling show, and what they're doing is relevant to the storyline. That's the whole point. So the thing is, for everybody to go ahead and compartmentalize and feel like, oh, well, we need this to happen. We need this to happen. And everything needs to be run perfectly and special. And, everything needs to be produced like a Kevin Dunn show, and, Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and Excalibur need to be on point with everything they're talking about with Vince in their ear. No, we don't. We don't, as people that watch AEW, I would imagine a fan base, they don't want that. Now, some of them are loyalists that they really want AEW to be better than WWE, but they're not. They're on their way. I'm going to say that. But again, everybody's all caught up in like, you got to say something about something. And everybody's got to crap on it. And I don't get it. I get it, but I don't care to get in it. It's not for me to be a part of. It's the gossip stuff. It's the wrestling Twitter. People want to get into that. It did trend number 1 for the most of the night worldwide, so it was good. Now, as for the matches, here's what we got. It was a little bit long, I will say that. But again, they were trying to make points about what they were doing. So early in the night, Joey Janela with Sonny Kiss defeated Serpentico. Wasn't a bad match, and Janela getting the win. It was good to see Janela finally get a win here and, get something. But again, the buy-in, Private Party defeating the Dark Order, and that was a 10-minute, 25-minute match. That wasn't bad. I liked it. Pretty simple. There was just, again, 2 matches that really didn't have much to say about it, so we just had to put these matches together. But what was interesting was that from the buy-in, originally Big Swole and Britt Baker were going to be put in the buy-in, but they decided, no, we're going to make it a match. Tooth and nail match. Good to not put it in the ring. I think the fact that they didn't have a second women's match, because at the moment right now, they're already struggling to get good women's matches on. Like, the women's matches have not been best known for the technical prowess. Like I said, I like Nala Rosa Riho. I've liked some matches where we've had like some 6-ways and things like that, but they haven't been great. Like, the women's division needs some work, but they really stepped up tonight with the featured women's match later on in the card. Well, anyway, the Big Swole Britt Baker storyline, like, I'm not looking for these two to get in the ring and really just rough it up. So I think the way they did it in the dentist office was fine. It wasn't super long. I think that, having to play along like that was cool, and it was different. And I think this is how you kind of just like move across. I'm like, okay. And Big Swole wins. So basically, I think that's the feud. I think it was a clean win. It's done. And Britt Baker needs to come back. And the Rebel character, I like it all. Let's just go ahead and Reba, we'll just get her back out there and just move along. That match was it was an interesting opening match. I will say that. So they didn't want to go the traditional, like get a luchadors out there and really go across the board. No, they didn't do that. They waited for the second match. Young Bucks, Matt and Nick against Jurassic Express. This was a good match. They really did put out a good match. Young Bucks were good. Jurassic Express, yeah, I like the match. Not a whole lot they're going to say necessarily. I mean, it was just good moves. Obviously, you can see that the Young Bucks were playing more of the heel role. So it's like interesting where they're trying to put the Elite and how they're positioning them right now. There's obviously a lot of different dynamics going on with that group. The 21-man Casino Battle Royale. Now we're kind of used to watching All In, All Out, and All Out now for 3 years now, and getting used to the Casino Battle Royale and the format of the suits and seeing, a group of wrestlers come out to the ring. So like the whole setup was good, fine. Did a good job of how they brought everybody out, where they definitely were playing up some storylines, and you saw there were certain people that were brought out to play up storylines that were going on in between that have been on TV. So when you see, you'll see in the Diamonds category, the second group that comes out, Santana Ortiz come out, and they're going after best friends. And then you see, Team Taz, and they're dealing stuff with Darby Allin and things like that. So all that's really good. And then Darby Allin, and then Brian Cage also dealing with Lance Archer. You had a few things like that. The one thing that was of course, we got to talk about Matt Sydal, man. Not a good night for him. I don't know what he slipped. His right foot slipped on the turnbuckle, or on the rope right next to the turnbuckle for whatever reason. So him doing his classic 450, no. It looked bad. I don't think he got necessarily super hurt, but it was a bad botch. It looked bad. And here's the thing, too. Every time things were going on, Excalibur, Shivani, Jim Ross, you know what? They handled it like they normally would. It was not like everything was just like perfectly scripted and perfectly like moving smoothly across. No, not always. But they handled it fine. They handled it like you would hope to be handling it. Like it was just a natural progression. So it was good. It was like sports commentators. They actually see things that happen that are not planned, and that's okay. They handled it fine. That was good. So with that said, they had a good setup in the match, and Lance Archer wins. He takes out Eddie Kingston. By the way, I read a little interesting tidbit that Eddie Kingston was offered a WWE contract. WWE actually reached out to him before he signed with AEW. I'm like, Eddie Kingston? Really? I didn't know he would be a guy that we considered over in WWE in the first place. I mean, obviously, we see Eddie Kingston's great talker, and I actually like the Eddie Kingston thing right now with the Butcher and Blade and with the Lucha Brothers. I actually like him playing the scumbag role here, kind of like finding a maneuver here. I actually like all that. So he's going to keep going. Great. Let's do it. Next match, Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara. Broken Rules match. This is, again, another match that decided not to be in ring. They decided, let's go Falls Count Anywhere. Their style, Falls Count Anywhere. Okay. Called it a Broken Rules match. I'll say the one thing I really did enjoy, they did play the callback to the golf cart, the one that Sammy Guevara got hit with by Matt Hardy. I like that Sammy Guevara came up in the golf cart. That was a nice touch. As for the match, it was, it was there. Didn't take much time, but again, I feel like with what happened to Hardy, they did a big bump where they did again the what do they call the truck? I forget what it's called now. So the crane, right? The stand-up crane for like the cameras and all that stuff, and for the coaches to watch, the overview crane. So they get up there, have a table set up. They have the spot laid out, but Matt and Sammy kind of overshot a little bit, and Matt Hardy's taking the bump on his back, And as he lands, he does handle it in on the table, but he also then lands on his head and does touch the concrete. He could have gotten a concussion. He might have very well have gotten a concussion. We don't know yet. But again, Dr. Sampson immediately there addressing the situation. It took a few minutes. And for whatever reason, originally the match was called and Aubrey Edwards rang the bell and waved it off, threw up the X sign. For whatever reason, they continued. Now, Matt Hardy consented, it looks like. Dr. Sampson consented. So everybody can go ahead and argue with that as you will. If they both decided to go along with it, again, for the stipulation's sake, they wanted to make sure they paid off this match for the crowd, for those who are watching a pay-per-view, and the stipulation was going to be because if Hardy lost, he would have to leave AEW. They don't want to do that yet. So Matt Hardy takes the win, finishes up, and we move along. After this, we move along to a better part of the pay-per-view. Because again, the earlier part of the pay-per-view, it wasn't strong. I think that the Casino Battle Royale was good, but again, it was fine. I don't have a problem with it. The Young Bucks match was good. I didn't have anything really one way or the other with the Tooth and Nail match or the Broken Rules match. Didn't do much for me. And I think it was just they were just there. But again, storylines were there. They were trying to go and put some things together. I just think the matches they put together for some of these storylines, they could have probably done something a little bit different. And again, they were trying to be creative with the matches they did to put these pay-per-view matches together. And that's what the whole point was. Instead of having to just do straight up feuds. Like, the question is, we already saw Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara reach each other and going outside the ring anyway, so to go to the Broken Rules match makes sense. It's logical. Big Swole and Britt Baker to take it to the dentist's office, that makes sense too. Again, there's logic behind everything. There's continuity. I can't complain about that. Did it execute perfectly? No, not all of them. I don't feel like we got the most out of the Tooth and Nail match. The Casino Battle Royale was fine. Young Bucks tag team match was fine. And the Matt Hardy Sammy Guevara match was okay. Now, what I can say was really good, I know a lot of people were really promoting this, were really praising tonight, AEW Women's World Championship, Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida. I love this match. These two worked really well together. Thunder Rosa, we saw immediately, regardless of what you think about the match that they had with her, which is another Brian Alvarez thing. He was like, why did they go ahead and make it a back and forth match? Why didn't they give Thunder Rosa a strong squash to solidify her and her abilities? Well, I don't know why they did it. I had no problem with the match anyway on Dynamite on Wednesday night. But what I did like was Thunder Rosa was a badass here. 17 minutes they had for this match. This match was good. Hikaru Shida was great. The submissions were great. The way they set up, the way they hit each other. I could see these two play each other again. Again, their first match together. I loved it. I love both of these wrestlers. I think they're fantastic. I love Shida as a champion. I love Thunder Rosa as an NWA champion. They're just good wrestlers. Good characters, well-defined. I love them. Just love the match. I can see these two wrestle again. It's like how I felt like with Becky Lynch and Charlotte. You could let them run again, let them wrestle again. Like, I want to see them one more time. If we can have it, let's do it. I wasn't completely into the 8-man tag team match, but again, they wanted to go ahead and play off the fact that Cody needed the revenge for Cody. So Dustin gets the Natural Nightmares together and gets back Cardona and Scorpio Sky. They bring those four together to go ahead and take out the Dark Order. And they did. And Colt Cabana takes the pin. And Brody Lee gets pissed. And now Brody Lee and Dustin are going to face each other for the TNT title on Wednesday. Now, this is a match I felt like, well, the 8-man tag, and Allie and Brandy Rhodes were out there at ringside, and also Anna Jay came out, and Brandy Rhodes attacked. So, like, the match was fine, but it was a logical idea for the match. So, again, for me to go ahead and try to nitpick the reasoning by the matches, I don't have any real arguments about it. I just felt like if the match executed well, I don't feel like it executed exactly where I could have said anything. But it's just the match was what the match was going to be. I don't think you can get more of what they did. And again, if you don't have Cody out there, it's missing what the real story is. But again, Cody's out. They have to play the part that he got hurt. And he got knocked out by Brody Lee. And then eventually those two will take on each other. And we'll have some kind of recompense for that. That's okay. Then you have 3 more matches in the card, which were awesome. Again, there were about 4 matches. I would say 5 matches on the card tonight that were great, that I loved. Again, women's title match, awesome. Young Bucks, Jurassic Express was really good. The tag team title match, Mimosa Mayhem, and AEW World title, I loved them all. I thought the matches they had definitely a five matches on the card that were definitely worthwhile. And the others that they had, they weren't bad, but again, they were missing a little something. Just a little bit. So again, I don't put it as a full A, it's a B. But that's still good. Compared to what they've been doing, it's still good. And I still enjoyed the pay-per-view. I never got bored. That's what I can tell you as well. So moving along, FTR with Tully Blanchard against Kenny Omega and Adam Page. I like the story being told in the match. And I think that FTR, it was good. This is FTR's coming out party. Like the fact that they got a chance to get into this match, they definitely played out everything that was going on with Page and Omega. They definitely were telling that story in the ring. FTR also playing into the story. Like the story they've been telling is good. And what they decided to do, FTR becomes new World Tag Team Champions. I liked it. Only title change tonight. I liked it. I thought it was good. The direction, I thought the way they finished it was good. Because it was 2 times they had to go and hit the pile driver, the group pile driver there. I thought it was done well. Adam Page gets the pin. Kenny Omega's pissed. And Kenny Omega wants a clean break from the Elite. Works. Effective. Very good match. Then you have Mimosa Mayhem match. This was as good as advertised. I loved it. They had the Vats. You definitely had Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho playing along. I think Chris Jericho... Sometimes there's just some creative shit that guy comes up with. This was an interesting match. The way they put it together, it made logic. And Orange Cassidy looked great in this match. In the last 3 matches, we absolutely saw that FTR are now in a better spot than they were as a Revival. You can disagree with me, but I'm going to say that right now boldly. FTR as tag team champions for AEW mean more to me than they ever did as a Revival. This is where they mean to be. They're with Tully Blanchard, the old school, even doing moves like the British Bulldogs and like the Brain Busters. It works. Them being the old school tag team, they was always acted like, right? Like almost like the Andersons. That works. That's them. That's how I always felt like they were. They were a WCW style, NWA style tag team. And they fit in this division great. They're different. They have their own style. It's good. And the way they put out the Omega Page stuff, I loved it. Very good tag team match. Back to Orange Cassidy, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho said it. He wanted to get him to be in the star level. I think Orange Cassidy definitely could be put up to main event right now. And he'd be great. I just think that, where do you want to go with him next? Because Orange Cassidy gets the win over Chris Jericho, throws Jericho into the Mimosa tank. Great stuff. And they did good stuff in the match. I just thought, I loved it. It was really good. And now, the way they booked MJF, now again, no paradigm shift. And we're looking into the match itself. MJF sold so good. MJF was such a fucking heel. MJF... John Moxley played his role. He was on the offense the whole time, burying and just pummeling the shit out of MJF. It's as if whatever Moxley said in his promos, he did. Remember, that was most important. The way they talked to each other on the promos was exactly what happened. It was really good. And again, MJF, attention to detail. Him doing the heel shit. Asking for the ref as he's getting his fingers all twined up and split almost by Moxley. Moxley, hitting some vicious lariats. Putting on some submissions on the MJF. It was just, and got him bloodied as shit. And MJF, Crimson Mask a la Ric Flair. It was good. MJF looked amazing in that match in a loss. He looked great in a loss. This is what is the epitome of this character. He is so good. And this is what made the pay-per-view really did stand out. I think they did carry up and finish off the pay-per-view very strong. Moxley winning was good. I don't think MJF was time for him to be the champion yet. I said that before. I loved it. Very well done with this match. Very well played out. This was very good. Again, last 3 matches of this pay-per-view were really jam-packed solid. I loved them pillar to post. I love the women's title match. I really like the Young Bucks match. Across the board, that's where I'm at. B+ pay-per-view. That's what it was tonight. I really enjoyed it. I already talked about the cameo and Twitch stuff for a moment at the start of the show. And I'll just say about this, that there are certain things that we've talked about on the program here, where I've talked about where the stars, the superstars in WWE, they need to be able to go and be the characters they are and amplify themselves on social media. It's very important for them to try to draw the audience, because the machine that WWE is right now to reach that audience is not working, because they're not building up an audience. Like, you could get something done virally to get people to watch Raw and SmackDown. I think you can still get people to come on board and watch the show. They don't have to be accustomed to 2 million viewers on average, or just below sub 2 million viewers for Raw. They could get more, but they got to let the stars begin their own. Now, does AJ Styles playing video games on Twitch and doing live streams, does that make a difference? Does Sasha Banks doing cameo stuff for her fans, does it make any difference? I don't know. I think it's just extra stuff. I think for Sasha Banks, listen, if she gets on Instagram and just posts regularly, she's got 4.8 billion followers. I mean, come on. Like, there's a lot of places for Sasha to go out and put herself out there. Again, product lines, clothing lines, whatever they want. There's other monetization that has not been taken away. I don't necessarily feel any way miffed by the fact that the wrestlers are not able to go ahead and take advantage of some of these. The fact they're going to take 2 of those things away. I know Dave Meltzer speculated that maybe there's a reason why. Maybe there's something that WWE is going to do on their own to help use that and utilize the ideas that are being used by these wrestlers. I don't know. But cameo on Twitch, not so much. If they can still be on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and they can move along that, or do YouTube videos, I think those are the places you really can monetize. Twitch, yeah, but again, there's like other places you could do the same thing. Like if they want to do YouTube and do super chats, again, PewDiePie didn't go over to Twitch. He was on YouTube for the longest time, and he still is, right? So like that's his thing. You want to do video games, you could do it on YouTube, absolutely. And I know people that watch this, that listen to the show, do the same thing. So I don't feel so much about that. I just think that's, it's a bit of nitpicking. But I still think it's very important for all these stars to be social media savvy, to use their personalities, build their characters up, and get them to lead viewers to the shows. Because I think that's what really needs to happen. For all these wrestlers, for them to be able to do what they're doing, they have to realize, number one, they're bread and butter by WWE, even though they're independent contractors. They have to know that the characters are the licenses of the company, and they're using them. And if they're going to be able to use their characters or do anything of their likeness that is familiar to their characters, then they need to go ahead and be able to do something that will benefit the company, because they only have what they have because of the company, unless they're doing it somewhere else. So that's what it comes down to. And regardless, the exposure they get is helpful because they are WWE superstars. And even though there's not so much of an engagement on watching the TV show on a regular basis, they are engaging with them online, on social media. That's just how it is. It's pretty solid. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening in. Finding the show. Come back for another Wednesday so we can talk all about the fallout from All Out. We'll also go ahead and see what Raw comes up with. Now, I'll talk some stuff about Roman Reigns and see what's going on with that, but I'm going to leave that for another show. I want to keep this at 30 minutes. So anyway, we'll leave it there. And remember, please, if you want to help out this show, by all means, go to kingofamazon.com. It's my special Amazon link, and that way you can go there, buy stuff from Amazon, and you can definitely help out this show. So come back this Wednesday, come into Thursday for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. Brought to you by kingofamazon.com. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook at Wrestling is Real. Subscribe to the Wrestling is Real podcast through all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also look for episodes on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO 951. You can find all this information and more by going to the website WrestlingIsReal.com.